And next, I want to introduce my very good friend, Marcell. Marcell and I spend time on the phone. We spend time talking about kids. We spend a lot of time talking about election stuff. Marcell is one of the best people I know. He's running for Secretary of State. And one of the things about Marcell that I think really gives him gravitas is he is a 20-year veteran of intelligence in the U.S. Air Force. He just retired. And Marcell, I'll say this because he's so nice. Marcell is just one of those people, when you meet him, you'll want to be his friend. So when you leave this meeting tonight and you see his name, pay attention to it wherever you see it, because you might run into him again and you'll say, Marcell, I remember you when. I remember you in that meeting. So with that, Marcell, come.
Appreciate that. Hi, everybody. Thank you. It's nice to be with you here. It's a great group. Good. Appreciate that introduction, Carol. So I did serve 20 years and I saw a lot in the last 20 years. And one of the common things that I see is a growing world of threats. In my background as an intel officer, and there are other intel officers here, and we're going to hear from them, distinguished as well. But one of the things that the 9/11 era taught a lot of military service members was you have to know your stuff, you have to be aware of your surroundings, and you have to understand what's taking place, not just abroad, but within the country, because our world became interconnected heavily in the last 20 years. And one of those things that developed were election systems. We went from very basic elections, pre-printed, hand-markable paper ballots. You would go there in person, same day. You'd have them counted at the polling locations. We were civically engaged more so then. This is like 2000. This is when I was just getting started and right before 9/11. And it's interesting, the more people I talk to across the state, because I'm traveling and have been in this race, they all seem to say the same thing. Why do we need this level of complication, costliness, controversy? It seems like every other cycle, depending on who loses, somebody's going to come back and they're going to blame some component or aspect of the system. So what's happened is we have allowed election systems to drift, to become this. We haven't been engaged. Many of us aren't exactly volunteering as much anymore. And even across the state of Ohio, a lot of the polling locations are consolidating. And so what that's doing is it's setting up a situation where we will go to remote voting in due time if we don't harness and we don't resuscitate the value of in-person voting. So I want you to understand the opportunity before us right now with President Trump in office. We're revisiting a lot of assumptions about election systems that we didn't touch for a lot of reasons. Folks in public office, electability, these are issues that I don't have time for. I'm a very practical person. I came out of the Pentagon. I worked recently with the Information Systems and Force Modernization in the DoD. We drifted in over 10 years fighting nation state actors that were third rate. We degraded our military capability and we neglected what we needed to do at home. And what do we have now? We have election season instead of election day. We have ballot gathering activities instead of vote earning campaigns. So we are in a position where we're out there like anybody else trying to chase ballots and allowing this to flow out. And all that's doing is it's giving actors in the system the opportunity to take advantage of that. In Hamilton County last year, we had third-party voter registration groups that were submitting false registrations. And they were able to get away with that because the laws in Ohio are not strong enough to punish that, to prohibit those third-party groups. So what I would like to propose to you is you look at who you care to vote for in 2026. And you're looking at the candidates, and there's many decent people in that race. Be sure to choose the candidate that is the right person with the right understanding for the right cause. I don't need a political career. I want a job. I want 4 years or at most 8 years as your Secretary of State to go right at this election system issue to address the problems of voter ID. We allow 1 million people, for example, to vote by mail-in ballot without a copy of a photo ID. That's not acceptable, and we've allowed that. We also allow no excuse absentee mail-in voting. So it's become about convenience. It's not become about your personal responsibility. And voting needs to be about responsibility. We have to know our candidates. We have to know our issues. We have to be prepared in that way. And so this is my candidacy offers you a reset because I've taken, in this instance, President Trump's agenda for upfront citizenship registration, right? We want to know who is a citizen or not a citizen. Just 2 weeks ago, our Secretary of State announced for the third time a batch of non-citizen registrants and voters in the state of Ohio. And that comes not with assessing all 8 million registered voters. We're literally snaking our way through those, and it's telling us that something's broken. What's broken is we're not verifying people on the front end for correct information before we give them a voter ID number. So I want to be the person with the military background who has an understanding of process to be able to initiate a new process. And my process is simple. Anybody who presents a registration will be validated for correctness. We will have people checked on the basis of their identity, citizenship, and residency in the state of Ohio. In fact, we'll be the first state to do that, and it's not far off other than the fact that we don't have political will to do it. And this is what it's going to take. A political outsider like me who's willing to set aside raising a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, and 8-year-old and not be home most of the time. But I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to deploy, if you will, to Columbus to address that issue because it's our future. And I don't want to see what took place 4 years ago in this, 5 years ago in this country when things really went haywire. And it was probably the most shameful and embarrassing time for our democracy in that sense because the world's looking at us and saying these people can't count votes for a week and a half. So what I'm saying to you is simple. We still have those variables. Ohio may not be California. It may not be Illinois. Thank God for that. But what you have to do, and what I've been taught in my military career, is you have to anticipate 5 to 10 years where things are going. So bringing somebody in who understands that elections are about threat assessment, about mitigation, sustaining what we do well, but enhancing what we are not doing well, that is the type of focus and mindset that I would bring. And I have the detailed 1 day, 1 vote plan. So I want to bring our elections back to same day in-person voting. I do want to make exceptions for people who are mobility restricted, who are not in the precinct on election day. For many, many years, since 1977, we had valid excuse. I believe that valid excuse, 28 days, valid excuse, mail-in ballot, absentee ballots, paired with same-day in-person is the right choice for Ohio. With pre-printed, hand-markable paper ballots that can still be scanned or they can be hand-counted, but if that's the latter, we're going to have to train many, many people. The counties are going to have to vote that. And that's actually starting to take place in Ohio. The rural counties are trying to put a ballot referendum up to restore that system. And I don't know if you knew this, they were recently shut down from the Secretary of State level down to the Board of Elections, which took it a step further. They actually told those people that they're not allowed to be voting location managers because they expressed the wrong opinion or view about the way that votes should be counted. So they were suspended. Now, the good news is, our gubernatorial candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, didn't take that. So he wrote a Wall Street op-ed journal, and I went to Seneca County myself, and I presented that. We have to not only fight for the rural counties to have local sovereignty and choice, we have to ensure that we don't violate people's rights in the process. We cannot alienate the very same people that you need. So I'm acutely aware of this. I'm acutely aware of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities with voting systems because I have secured critical infrastructure in the Air Force for top tier weapon systems at the Pentagon. And so what you get is immediately my knowledge set on that and my application of that knowledge dedicated in that job. And in 4 years, we can have all of the things that we're looking to have for a much more simpler system and preserve the future of our election systems. And so I'm grateful if you would consider my vote. If you'd wish to help me get on the ballot, I've got a circulator petition going on here as well. And if you would like to pick up a sign or if you could even support by any means financially is very helpful. This campaign has done very well initially running forward, getting started, and people are noticing it. We've got endorsements from Ohio Value Voters, Cleveland Right to Life. We're further growing this movement, and people are, again, noticing in the media and others. So we've got 7 months till that election. I know that with your help, you will put me over the top, and I will clean up the issues that have the lack of accountability, oversight, and responsibility that have long been prevalent, and we can get this accomplished. And I'd be grateful and honored if you would give me the opportunity to serve you in Columbus. And I'll take any questions from you at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Just a second. Hold up, please.
Betty's going to wait for them.
Oh. I don't know if it's the purview of the Secretary of State, but if it is, what can be done about outside groups coming in, paying canvassers to get constitutional amendments on our ballots? Is that within the purview of the Secretary of State?
The Secretary of State can impose additional directives of oversight, but our law is very weak right now. It says that those third-party groups just have to go online. They have to register with the Secretary of State's office, and they have to take some computer-based training. And then everything after that is over. So if they do something to the effect of what happened last year in July in Hamilton County with the Board of Elections and the group of canvassers that were affiliated with Black Fork Strategies, then the only thing I've seen happen in Ohio is the canvassers were fired, but the entity itself did not face penalty. I propose legislation that prohibits third-party voter registration engagement organizations in that sense who have been convicted of or had some form of malfeasance involved in their work. Florida has a fine system. We can adopt that, or we can just say, you know what? The only requirement for entities to be involved is what the federal government says currently, and that is Department of Medicaid, Jobs and Family Services, Bureau of Motor Vehicles. And oh, by the way, we have an online registration system. So who here doesn't have internet? I mean, you can look anywhere in our society at this point, internet is prevalent. So we don't need to have nonprofit, dark money groups flooding into anywhere. I don't care what part of the state involved in these activities. What we need is political will and not somebody being afraid that they're going to be called a name, a bigot, a racist, a vote denier, a vote suppressor. Because that's also the issue is once people feel like they're going to get called that, they're like, oh, I don't want it. So we've got people who need to stand up and say, no, there's evidence that's shown third-party groups have defrauded this process. We don't accept that. And we're not going to be that suckers for that going forward.
Question right here. Is the Republican Party going to endorse in the primary, the Central Committee? Are they going to endorse, or because that's a big thing, right? If they endorse, it's tough to beat that candidate.
Yeah, I understand your question, sir. Thank you for the question. I'm not aware of any endorsements. In September, the Central Committee met. They did not endorse. They did say that on a rare occasion with Vivek Ramaswamy and our Senator Hughes said that was a exception based. I think this is a non-incumbent open primary seat. And if they did that, that would be very unfortunate for the thousands of grassroots Ohioans who all they want to see is a fair competition. They want to see the ideas come out. They want to see debates. I want to do a debate. I'll debate the Democrat who I've offered a debate to, who's running, who is the minority speaker of Ohio, Allison Russo. I'm willing to debate the current treasurer. He had previously announced for governor, but now he's announcing for Secretary of State. So I'm happy to debate him as well. I think that's what we need to have. We need to have a discussion among the candidates. It would make all of us better informed, and I'm willing to do that. So for now, everything is open highway. Thank you. Hi.
One more question here.
Yeah, open primaries. Realize in Ohio in the past that in the open primaries, like Vivek is the only one, but if there were multiple people, the Democrats went over to what they consider the weakest candidate on the Republican side and passed the vote. There are specific examples that I won't go through. But is there a way we really ought to have a closed primary system? Is there anything you can do as Secretary of State?
Absolutely. The last two secretaries of state have not enacted what is already existing law. I'm the only candidate in this race that has come out markedly and said, I am for closing the primary. It is about the integrity of the party process. That doesn't prohibit anyone in the general election from voting any way they like. But for primaries, that's based on affiliation. That's the way Ohio's law is. Now, there is a bill for that, for HB 320 that got introduced recently. But it is interesting, is it not? Why would that be a problem for us to get behind a position like that when it's already in law? Why are we not adopting it? So these are the things that are inconsistent with the Republican Party that I, as an outsider, am not beholden to some personal relationship or some agreement to that. And I just look at the landscape and I say, is that good for the Ohio voter or is it not good for the Ohio voter? And that's my litmus test. That's how I approach it. Yes, sir.
Be very quick. Claremont County is doing endorsements. See me afterwards and give me your contact info, and I'll get you hooked up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anybody else? I know we have our star attraction coming. One more, I guess.
Is there anything we can do to prohibit ranked choice voting from coming to Ohio? Because that is horrible.
I'm with you. There is a bill in the Senate.
Oh.
I haven't jumped on board with it because it only prohibits ranked choice voting at the state level. It keeps somewhat ambiguity at the local level. It defunds localities from pursuing this multi-round. For those who may not know what ranked choice voting is, it's multi-round voting. What it does is it deobligates their funding. But what happens when the expected lawsuit comes in and then a judge says that's illegal? Now, all of a sudden, you went from prohibiting part of the ranked choice voting in law to actually enshrining when you didn't have it in law. So my position on ranked choice voting is bring it forward as a constitutional amendment ballot and let the people of Ohio eradicate it for good. Don't play around with the courts and don't let this drag out 3-4 years because like you're noting, it's been a disaster in a lot of areas, Maine, Colorado. People are starting to move away from it, but there's always this flirtation with it because the presumption is that it's going to give people who haven't had a right to win election. But I think it gets gamed by any party with the dominant money regardless. Okay. Well, it's a real pleasure. Thank you, EmpowerU. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And I'll stick around.